At 6:29 a.m., I poured burnt coffee into the same dented thermos I'd used every day for 14 years. Chipped on the rim, sticker half peeled, and permanently stained with caffeine residue, it was ugly, but it was mine. In the back of the server ops lounge, 5 of us sat like statues in half-broken chairs, splitting a gas station cinnamon roll like it was a communion wafer. No one talked. We didn't need to. Then someone muttered, 12.3 billion in uptime revenue. Just that. No applause, no balloons, no celebratory email, just a quiet acknowledgement of the number we had quietly protected like monks guarding a flame. I nodded. They didn't need to say it. I'd kept this place alive through hurricanes, midnight outages, 3 full CEO turnovers, and once a literal rat chewing through the fiber line behind Building D. I remembered duct taping Ethernet lines and booting up backup servers while eating cold ravioli straight from the tin. Officially, I was Senior Systems Resilience Strategist. Unofficially, I was the guy who made sure customers never knew when the sky fell. 14 years, no scandals, no late deliverables, no major outages, just uptime. But that morning, everything shifted. I opened my inbox expecting routine noise, ticket updates, coffee roulette, maybe a new security bulletin. But right there at the top, bolded like it was just another line item, was the subject line. RE role transition. Notice I clicked it. My eyes scanned the body, effective immediately. Compensation adjustment, office relocation. Strategic mentorship alignment. I kept reading, then I saw it. They slashed my pay, took my office, and handed my job title, my job, to Elliot Kavanaugh, the CEO's 24-year-old son. Online MBA. No experience. The kind of guy who still used the word synergy unironically. I stared at the screen. Someone in the lounge asked if I was okay. I sipped my coffee, slowly, and closed the laptop. I didn't answer, just leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling, letting it settle. The taste of burnt cinnamon and old coffee filled my mouth. Elliot Kavanaugh, that little LinkedIn avatar with the perfect jawline and crypto startup internship, was now the public face of the infrastructure I'd built with blood and cable ties. I could already picture him walking in, calling people rock stars, setting up Slack emojis, and probably renaming our clusters something like Node Vibe Zed. He wasn't here yet, but he would be. And when he came, they expected me to welcome him, mentor him, teach him how to keep the lights on while he played CEO Junior. That was the assumption, and I played along, nodded, smiled. But I already knew what I was going to do. I was going to mentor him all right. Mentor him straight into a goddamn ditch. I didn't react, didn't blink, just archived the email, sipped my coffee, and watched them install a chrome-plated espresso machine that looked like it belonged in a Bond villain's yacht. They called it part of the innovation zone. I called it a monument to stupidity. They gave my role, my job, to Elliot Kavanaugh. He showed up that morning wearing sneakers that probably cost more than my mortgage. No badge, no laptop bag, not even a notepad. Just a smile too white to be natural, and a branding beanie, like he was late for a photo shoot. He walked in like he was hosting a TED Talk nobody asked for, doing finger guns at engineers who hadn't slept since Tuesday. "Yo, call me L or E-Money, whatever's chill," he said, clapping the air like someone who just learned what a server was that morning. The room fell silent. We were used to people coming and going, reorgs, consultants, VPs with too much teeth and too little context. But this kid? This was a new level. His hoodie said, 0 downtime, all grind. His laptop, when it finally showed up, was covered in neon vinyl stickers that said things like, disrupt and root for the chaos. I didn't say a word. Just watched as he swaggered toward the whiteboard in our war room and pulled up my core infrastructure diagram, 16 years of optimized routing paths, load balancers, and legacy fortified redundancies, and started simplifying it. He dragged sections around like a toddler using MS Paint, removed critical nodes, renamed failover sequences with emojis, turned our hardened, battle-tested map into a Canva slide titled The Customer Journey, Let's Make Energy Go Viral, Comic Sans. He used Comic Sans. "I want to shift the paradigm," Elliot announced, standing in front of the mess like he had just invented oxygen. "No more boring diagrams. We're not routing packets. We're delivering vibes." Someone coughed. I think it was Dave from Backend. probably choked on his soul. "Let's amplify customer sparkle across our delivery stacks," Elliot said, nodding at his own brilliance. "We're thinking TikTok-style engagement metrics. We'll turn UPTIME into a lifestyle brand." I stared at the sticky note in front of me and started drawing triangles. It was either that or a murder charge. He kept going. Mispronounced 3 of our biggest client names in a row. Called our proprietary load balancer a legacy friction vector. Tried to compare our security protocols to DoorDash. They clapped. A few people clapped. Not because they believed it, but because HR was sitting in the back pretending to take notes and they knew the game. You clap, you keep your badge. You roll your eyes, and suddenly, restructuring lands in your inbox like a brick through a window. I leaned back and raised a hand. Elliot grinned. "You got a thought to share, my UPTIME king?" "I do," I said, still drawing. "When you say shift the paradigm, are we talking routing protocols or just TikTok hashtags?" The silence was brief but brutal. Elliot chuckled. "Haha, love that. Honestly, both. It's all energy, right?" I nodded. "Right. Just wondering how we'll shift power between redundant failover nodes using emojis. That's all." Someone next to me snorted. Elliot didn't notice. He was too busy air swiping through slides that looked like they were built by a bored intern on Molly. After his little performance, he came over and tried to high-five me. "Appreciate your passion, my guy," he said. "I know change is scary, but this is how we go global viral. I'm gonna need you mentoring me hard, bro." I smiled. Oh, I'd mentor him. I'd mentor him straight into a ditch. By lunch, he'd booked a synergy sync with marketing to launch something called Project Vibe Bridge. I stayed in the lounge, finished my cold coffee, and updated a few private admin keys nobody remembered still existed. I knew what was coming, and they thought I'd play along. Let them think it. It started like static in the walls, a seat left empty in the ops lounge, a badge deactivated with no warning, a desk cleared before noon, no goodbye emails, no Slack announcements, just silence. First it was Candace from SRE, then Ahmed from security engineering, then Kenny, my guy Kenny, who once hot-patched a 0-day vulnerability with a shell script he wrote on a bar napkin while sipping Miller Lite. Gone, all of them. Whispered out like ghosts. The official term was strategic alignment. The real term, a purge. A quiet sweep of anyone who still remembered what the backbone of this place actually looked like. The kind of people who knew where the duct tape was stored. The ones who could still SSH into legacy nodes with their eyes closed. I kept my head down and watched. Elliot didn't notice. He was too busy launching something called Customer Vibes Flow Trademark, which included a mascot. Yes, a mascot named Cash. A pastel cartoon dog with aviators and a backward baseball cap. Cash represents frictionless billing energy, Elliot explained during an all-hands, pointing to the dog spinning on a slide. It's all about emotional latency, reducing anxiety pings in the client funnel. I turned slowly and made eye contact with Dave. His face looked like it was buffering. A week later, my calendar pinged. Subject: Informal Touchpoint, HR and People Ops. They called it informal. But when I walked in, there were 2 people already seated at the little conference table. One smiled too wide. The other didn't look up. A manila folder sat in front of them. Water bottles, untouched. Classic. "Thanks for coming in," said the smiley one. "We wanted to check in on your mentorship alignment with Elliot. He speaks very highly of your input." I nodded, said nothing. She opened the folder and slid a few documents toward me, like she was offering a menu at a diner. Except instead of pancakes and eggs, this one featured phrases like early transition incentive, mentorship credit package, and release of technical ownership. They wanted me gone. Softly, of course. A celebrated exit, a little LinkedIn send-off, and maybe a fake gold keychain in a velvet box. They thought I'd thank them. "Of course," she continued. "We understand this is a change, but with Elliot taking on the strategic lead role, your core systems were assumed to be transitioned already." That's when I leaned back. Let the pause stretch. Let it breathe. Then I said it, just loud enough. "I still run 3 of your routing endpoints." Silence. Even the non-smiley one looked up now. "I'm sorry," the woman said, flipping back through the folder. "We were told those were migrated last quarter." "They weren't," I said, "because you didn't know where they lived." "But the architecture, Elliot's diagram," she started, "is a Canvas slide filled with emojis and buzzwords," I said flatly. My routing logic predates his TikTok account. They froze. You don't have the keys, I added. More silence. I picked up the NDA and read it. Not a single line surprised me. They offered me a chunk of cash and a LinkedIn recommendation in exchange for walking away quietly and pretending Elliot built the system I designed from scratch. I slid the folder back across the table, untouched. Then I pulled something else out of my backpack, a printout, yellowed at the edges, folded in thirds. 2013, I said. Licensing agreement, signed by the original CTO. It grants system design authorship rights to the creator of our routing logic, me, including reuse, derivative work, and licensing control. They both stared at it like it was a weapon, which, in a way, it was. You can't sell what I still own, I said, standing up. We're going to have to loop in legal, the smiley one finally whispered. Yeah, I said. You probably should. I walked out calm. Let them scramble. They thought they had everything under control. They didn't even know where the wires were buried. It started, as most catastrophes do, with pastel fonts and unchecked ego. On a Monday morning, Elliot stood in front of the dev team wearing a hoodie that read 99.999% vibes only, holding a cold brew and a clicker. He dimmed the lights like we were at a high school film screening and pulled up a slide deck titled The New Era of Infra, naming things that spark joy. First slide, Node Bay. Second slide, Node Groot. Third, Node Swift. I wish I was kidding. This is the new cluster structure, he said, like he was introducing a boy band. No more boring alphanumerics. Our servers need personality. They need to be brands. I opened a terminal window and whispered to Dave, so when Node Groot fails, do we say I am down? He nearly choked on his coffee. They renamed production. Production, not test, not staging. Live client infrastructure. No testing, no rollback path, no QA sign-off. Just renaming the critical architecture of a 12.3 billion uptime stack like it was a folder full of memes. Elliot called it a symbolic refresh. I called it what it was, a loaded gun with the safety off. At 9:23 a.m., the first cracks showed up. Client analytics glitched, spiky data, sessions lost, heat maps misaligned. Customer journey maps started looking like Etch-A sketch drawings after a seizure. By 2:50 p.m., internal dashboards moved like molasses. Page loads hung mid-spin. You'd click Users Online, and it would hang like the 2003 internet on dial-up. Elliot called it a little caching jitter. He posted a gif of a dog in a lab coat. We're on it, it said. 10 likes, all from marketing. I quietly rerouted 2 of the admin tools. Created simulated load pressure. Nothing critical, just enough to push the alerts from quirk to degradation. Within an hour, Jira tickets popped up. UI quirk, low priority login loop on legacy API, medium billing, retries spiking. Investigate, nobody looked deeper. They couldn't, because the legacy scripts, my scripts, were already starting to implode behind the scenes. The moment Elliot renamed those clusters, every dependency tied to the old node references started failing silently. Background tasks, billing jobs, archive pushes, system syncs, all gone haywire. But the metrics didn't show a crash, yet. The weekly executive meeting came Thursday. The CEO was beaming like a proud dad at a little league game. We've seen zero churn since adopting the Gen Z workflow framework, he said, pointing to a pie chart full of smiling emoji reactions. Our clients feel the vibe. I raised my hand. The room quieted. There's an unresolved instability in the routing bridge, I said. Failover sync is lagging by 40 seconds on any cluster that used to be under prod core. That includes Node Groot. Elliot rolled his eyes. The CEO laughed. Come on, let's trust the new blood, he said. Look at those engagement numbers. This is what progress looks like. Sure. Progress looked like 3 engineers crying in the bathroom last night, trying to refactor Jenkins jobs to recognize server names from the Guardians of the Galaxy. Then they dropped the cherry on top. We're scheduling a live investor demo, the CEO said. Next Tuesday, real-time infrastructure overview using the new naming structure. He looked at Elliot. You'll lead it. Elliot finger-gunned back. Absolutely. Full vibes, total sparkle. And just like that, I knew what I had to do. That night, I logged into my home server, pulled up a shell, Activated a protocol I wrote 10 years ago, just in case someone ever got too confident with a system they didn't understand. Cur sleeper, silent, confirm, time 9 a.m. Tuesday. It was done. The kill switch was live. They scheduled the demo. I scheduled the funeral. The next morning, the air felt charged, not with tension, worse, with excitement. Branded pastries lined the snack bar, neon-colored ones shaped like lightning bolts, all stamped with Vibe Flow Launch Day in edible glitter. The espresso machine hissed non-stop like it was preparing for battle. Someone had wheeled in ring lights and a branded backdrop that said Number Gen Z Infra in cursive font. Like we were about to live stream a makeup tutorial instead of a real-time infrastructure demo. I walked in like I always did. Same burnt coffee in the same chipped thermos. Same threadbare hoodie. Same nod to the front desk lady, who barely looked up. Nobody noticed me. Nobody remembered to revoke my badge access either. The systems and logic doors still slid open with a quiet beep. Green light flashing like an old friend saying, "Still got your back." The control room was exactly as I'd left it. Dim, humming, loyal. At 8:46 a.m., I sat down and checked everything. Final confirmation. All routing endpoints were prepped. Live traffic was still flowing through the logic nodes I redirected to cold storage clusters 2 days earlier. A frozen bridge wrapped in silence, waiting. Only I had the keys. At 8:59, I sipped my coffee and waited. Outside the room, I could hear the buzz from the open floor. Elliot's voice, loud, overeager, boomed through the loudspeakers as he hyped up the live investor stream. I caught phrases like energy journey, cross-platform sparkle, and mascot engagement per millisecond. At 9 a.m., my home server executed the kill command, right on time. 38 countries, 42 enterprise clients, hundreds of dashboards, thousands of API calls. All of them died in sync, silence, like someone had cut the cord to the world's heartbeat. Monitors in the demo room flickered, then blacked out. Marketing screens showed frozen graphs mid-animation. Dashboards stopped updating. API endpoints hung indefinitely, waiting for responses that would never come. Then came the screams. Not dramatic ones, just urgent, panicked ones. Mouse clicks, furious typing, Slack threads lighting up like fireworks. Someone dropped a pastry. A junior engineer whispered, "I think we lost everything." From the live stream room, I heard the CEO's voice stumble. Just a minor latency spike, folks. Everything's under control." No one believed him. I walked out of the control room slowly, thermos in hand, blending into the chaos. I passed Elliot standing by the demo screen, blinking at his frozen Canva slide that still said, "Node Groot, I am online." His mouth opened and closed like a fish. I slipped past him and stood near the edge of the crowd. Nobody noticed me. They were too busy watching a multi-billion-dollar system collapse in silence. No one mentioned my name. No one thought to ask if I had anything to do with it. Because they'd already replaced me. At 9:07, a developer shouted, "Routing layers down!" At 9:12, a product manager started crying. At 9:19, the CEO canceled the investor call mid-sentence. The floor fell into a weird hush, the kind of stillness that follows a natural disaster. Quiet. Number. Like everyone was trying to figure out how this could have happened when they were so sure it couldn't. And I just stood there, sipping my coffee. Because they'd made one mistake. They forgot who held the map. They thought I was obsolete. They didn't realize I'd built the engine they were now watching fall apart. And I wasn't done yet. Someone finally asked the question. It came from across the floor. Someone from SRE who still knew how to breathe when things went sideways. His voice was tight, like he already knew the answer, but didn't want to be the one to say it out loud. Who has access to the legacy routing shell? Everyone froze. The room went quiet except for Elliot's ragged breathing and the soft hum of the espresso machine still grinding beans for no one. You could practically hear the blood drain from the CEO's face. I stood up slowly, let my boots echo just a little on the concrete floor, and took one last sip of coffee from my dented thermos. Then I said it, clear and calm. I might. Dozens of eyes turned toward me. Elliot looked like he'd seen a ghost, which, to be fair, was pretty accurate. They thought I was gone, obsolete, a relic. Now I was the only living map to a system they didn't understand. I reached into my bag and pulled out the flash drive, matte black. Faded label scrawled in dying Sharpie, Chi RR 00001. I held it up like a priest holding a relic. This has the restoration key set and the original routing logic from 2013. The system's not broken, I said, turning it slowly in my fingers. Just asleep. They stared at me like I'd spoken a spell. But the keys, the CTO stammered, eyes flicking between the flash drive and the blinking red dashboard. Aren't in your servers, I finished. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. In the corner, PR had their heads buried in laptops, already drafting a damage control statement. We're experiencing a legacy transition event, unexpected vendor behavior, an opportunity to showcase resilience. It was all nonsense. This wasn't a crash. It was a reckoning. Elliot dropped into a chair and stared at his tablet, pale and silent, like it had betrayed him personally. I could see it hitting him in waves, the investor stream, the branding decks, the TikTok workflow hashtags, the pastel dog mascot. None of it mattered now. All he had was a frozen network and 100 furious clients waiting in the dark. I walked back to my desk, sat down, opened my laptop, wrote one email, 2, executive leadership. Subject restoration rights line, item 001, $2.5 million. Line, item 002, 7.5% equity vesting. This is not a ransom. This is a reinstatement of value. I hit send. Then I stretched my back, took another sip from my thermos, and watched the chaos unfold in complete silence. They huddled. They whispered. Legal tried to look brave. PR tried to act like this was manageable. Nobody wanted to be the one to approve it, but nobody wanted to explain to shareholders why client access was dead in 40 countries. At 10:22 a.m., someone from finance asked for wire details. At 10:47, legal requested a call to align expectations. At 11:06 a.m., the transfer cleared. $2.5 million, 7.5% equity, all mine. They didn't announce it, didn't acknowledge it, just quietly handed me part of the company I no longer worked for. I plugged in the flash drive, typed 3 commands, and brought the system back online. Node Groot blinked awake. Node Bay synced its heartbeat. Node Swift hummed quietly like it had never been renamed by a man who called himself E-Money. Systems up. Clients restored. Dashboards glowing. I logged out, shut the laptop, and leaned back in my chair. I wasn't mad anymore. I was an owner now. Elliot was escorted out like a shoplifter at Costco. Security didn't drag him, but they didn't give him time to say goodbye either. One guy flanked him on each side, walking him past the innovation zone, the branded pastry cart, and his pastel-colored Cash the Dog figurine still sitting on the corner of his desk. He held his tablet to his chest like it might still save him. Nobody clapped, nobody said a word. I watched from the ops lounge, thermos in hand, same chair I'd always sat in, the same chair they'd tried to forget I existed in. By 12:30 p.m., the VP of Infrastructure resigned over lunch. No meeting. No explanation, just a system-wide calendar update. Effective immediately, Carl Jansen has chosen to pursue new opportunities. He didn't even pack up his office. Left his diploma on the wall and his company-issued MacBook open with a Slack window still glowing. That afternoon, marketing sent out a press release calling the incident a deep test of continuity preparedness. Said, we passed with flying colors. They even managed to slip in the word resilience 6 times without choking. The CEO, radio silent. He went from LinkedIn thought leader to a man with connection issues in the span of a few hours. As for me, I never went back. I didn't need to. I left the flash drive in the control room, unplugged and clean. Walked out without looking over my shoulder. No security escort. No badge revoked, just the quiet realization that the building didn't own me anymore. My desk stayed empty. Nobody touched it. My chair, my post-it stack, the cheap stress ball I never used, all of it remained untouched, like a shrine to the old system no one could replicate. My Slack went dark. Account deactivated. A week later, I formed Quiet UPTIME LLC. No launch party, no TED Talk, no finger guns. Just a private email from a senior director at one of our biggest clients. Heard you're independent now. Let's talk. Then another, and another. By the end of the week, I had signed contracts with 3 Fortune 500s. Real infrastructure work, real uptime. No pastel mascots, no buzzwords. Just systems that didn't break, built by someone who never wanted applause. Just a job done right. I bought a new thermos. Didn't throw the old one away, though. It sits on my shelf now. Dented, chipped, mine. A reminder of the quiet work that built empires. And of the fools who forgot who kept the lights on.